racist pilot attacks Barron Trump, but he is soon exposed. Barron was on the tarmac, calmly waiting for his flight to board. His flight was an unassuming commercial one, as he enjoyed blending in and keeping a low profile in public. He had grown used to moments like these, quiet and uneventful. But today would be anything but ordinary. The airline crew moved around swiftly, prepping for the boarding process. Barron noticed a man in a pilot's uniform approaching with a stern expression. His sharp gaze swept across the passengers before settling on Barron. The man's jaw tightened and his eyes narrowed. "Excuse me," the pilot said, stepping closer to Barron, his tone laced with arrogance. "Are you supposed to be here?" Barron raised an eyebrow, confused. "Yes. I have my boarding pass right here," he said, calmly pulling the ticket from his jacket pocket. The pilot glanced at the pass, barely giving it a glance before returning his cold stare to Barron. "Funny, you don't look like someone who should be in first class," he said, his voice dripping with disdain. The crowd nearby went silent, eyes turning toward the unfolding scene. Barron remained composed, though his heart rate quickened. He wasn't one to back down, but he also knew there were better ways to handle situations like this. "I'm sorry, but what exactly do you mean by that?" Barron asked, his voice steady. The pilot smirked, crossing his arms. "You know what I mean. Maybe you got lucky with some cheap upgrade, but first class isn't for everyone." The implied meaning hung heavily in the air. Barron noticed a few passengers exchanging uneasy glances. A woman whispered to her husband, who shook his head in disbelief. The tension was thick, but Barron knew this wasn't the time to lose his temper. "I'll kindly ask you to rethink what you're saying," Barron said firmly. "I paid for my ticket just like everyone else here." The pilot scoffed. "Right? Sure." As the confrontation escalated, a flight attendant approached, her expression a mix of shock and concern. "Captain, is there a problem here?" she asked. "No problem," the pilot replied curtly. "Just checking this passenger's ticket." The flight attendant glanced at Barron, recognizing him almost instantly. Her eyes widened slightly and she leaned in closer. "Sir, I believe this gentleman is more than qualified to be here," she said, her voice calm but resolute. Before the pilot could respond, several bystanders began recording the scene on their phones. One man called out, "What's your problem?" "He's just a passenger like the rest of us." "Yeah, leave him alone," another added. The pilot's confidence wavered for a brief moment, but he quickly regained his smug demeanor. "I'm just following protocol," he said defensively. "We can't be too careful these days." The crowd murmured in disapproval, their collective frustration growing. Barron took a deep breath, stepping forward. "I don't think your issue here is with protocol," he said calmly, locking eyes with the pilot. "It's clear that you've made assumptions about me based on how I look or who you think I am. But that's your problem, not mine." The pilot opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, a senior airline manager arrived, alerted by the growing commotion. "What's going on here?" she demanded, her gaze shifting between the pilot and Barron. The flight attendant quickly filled her in, and the manager's expression darkened. She turned to the pilot, her voice firm. "Captain, may I speak with you privately?" The pilot's face reddened as he followed her away from the crowd. The whispers grew louder as passengers speculated on what would happen next. Minutes later, the manager returned, her expression serious but composed. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to sincerely apologize for the behavior you just witnessed. That is not the standard of respect and professionalism we uphold at our airline." Turning to Barron, she added, "Mr. Trump, I deeply regret the experience you've had today. Rest assured, this matter will be addressed immediately." The pilot did not return to the flight. As the plane finally took off, Barron sat in his seat, grateful that the situation had been resolved but deeply reflective. Moments like these served as a reminder that prejudice could rear its ugly head anywhere, even in the most unexpected places. But it also reinforced something he'd always believed: staying calm, standing your ground, and letting the truth shine through was the best way to confront it. His phone buzzed with messages from friends who had already seen videos of the incident circulating online. The clip was gaining traction quickly, with comments pouring in. "Barron Trump just handled that like a boss. This pilot needs to be fired. Disgusting behavior." Way to stand tall, Barron. The flood of support was overwhelming. Yet again, Barron found himself at the center of a viral moment he hadn't asked for but had turned into something powerful. The airline issued a formal statement the following day, confirming that the pilot had been suspended pending a full investigation. The statement also emphasized their commitment to treating every passenger with respect, regardless of their background. Barron received countless messages from people who shared similar experiences of being judged unfairly. Many thanked him for standing up, for not backing down, and for being a voice for those who had gone unheard for too long. He smiled as he read through the messages, feeling a familiar sense of purpose. He hadn't expected to become a symbol for fairness and resilience, but if his experiences could help others find their strength, then it was a role he was happy to embrace. Later that evening, he sat down to compose a message to his followers. Today reminded me once again how important it is to stand up for what's right. No one should be judged for how they look or who they are. Always stay strong and remember, you have the power to rise above and make a difference. Never let anyone dim your light. The post went viral within minutes, cementing Barron's place as a beacon of hope and resilience for countless people around the world. And as he closed his laptop and looked out the window at the city lights, Barron knew one thing for sure: this was just the beginning. The next morning, the world was buzzing with news of the incident at the airport. Every major outlet had picked up the story, framing it as a glaring example of discrimination and prejudice being called out in real time. Barron woke up to an endless stream of notifications on his phone. Messages of support, news articles, and social media posts flooded in. This generation needs more leaders like Barron Trump, calm, composed, and unafraid to call out injustice. The pilot's behavior was unacceptable. Good on Barron for standing up without losing his temper. Powerful lesson: never judge someone by their appearance. Respect everyone, no matter who they are. The public response was far bigger than Barron had anticipated. While he appreciated the support, it also weighed heavily on him. Each message reminded him of the responsibility he now carried. It wasn't enough to just experience these moments and move on. He needed to use them to push for change. He reached out to his parents, Melania and Donald, to discuss the growing situation. The three of them gathered around the breakfast table, their conversation serious but supportive. "This is a pivotal moment," Donald said, his eyes thoughtful. "You have a platform, Barron, and people are listening. If you want to take this further, now's the time." Melania nodded in agreement. "You've always believed in fairness and treating everyone with respect. This could be an opportunity to create lasting change, not just for yourself, but for so many others." Barron considered their words carefully. His parents were right. This wasn't just a personal experience anymore. It had become a moment that resonated with countless others. And if he could amplify that message, maybe he could help prevent similar incidents in the future. By the end of the week, Barron had assembled a small team to help him launch a new initiative called Project Respect, aimed at promoting equality, tolerance, and kindness in public spaces. The mission was simple but ambitious: to educate professionals in service industries, airlines, restaurants, schools, about the importance of treating everyone with dignity and respect, regardless of their background or appearance. The project's launch event was held in a sleek conference center in downtown New York City. The room was packed with journalists, supporters, and curious onlookers. A large banner reading Project Respect, Building a Kinder World hung behind the podium. Barron took a deep breath before stepping onto the stage. The spotlight was intense, but he had grown used to it over the past few years. As he stood at the podium, the crowd fell silent, waiting for him to speak. "Thank you all for being here," Barron began, his voice steady and clear. "What happened to me at the airport last week wasn't unique. Unfortunately, incidents like that happen to people every day. People who don't have the same platform to speak out." He paused, letting his words sink in. "That's why I'm launching Project Respect. It's time we create a culture where everyone is treated with fairness and kindness. Not because of who they are or how they look, but because it's the right thing to do." The audience erupted into applause. Barron smiled, encouraged by the response. He continued, laying out the goals of the initiative and how it aimed to collaborate with businesses and schools to implement diversity training and awareness programs. We've all heard the phrase, treat others the way you want to be treated. It's time we start living by those words, Barron concluded. Together, we can create a world where everyone feels seen, respected, and valued. The crowd gave him a standing ovation. Dozens of hands shot up for questions, but Barron politely promised to answer them after the event. The launch had gone better than he had imagined. Over the following months, Project Respect grew at an astounding pace. Major airlines and restaurant chains partnered with the initiative, integrating its training programs into their staff development. Schools invited Barron to speak at assemblies, and universities requested him as a guest lecturer on promoting equality in public spaces. The initiative also inspired a wave of personal stories shared on social media. The hashtag Project Respect became a trending topic as people from around the world shared their experiences with discrimination and how they had overcome them. One story stood out in particular: a young woman named Sarah who had been denied service at a high-end clothing store because the staff assumed she couldn't afford anything. Sarah posted a heartfelt message about how Barron's story had inspired her to stand up for herself and demand the respect she deserved. Her post quickly went viral, garnering thousands of supportive comments. Project Respect gave me the courage to speak out, Sarah wrote. No one deserves to be treated like they're invisible. Thank you, Barron, for showing us how to rise above and push for change. Barron was deeply moved by the response. Sarah's story reinforced everything he believed in, the power of one voice to inspire many. He reached out to her, inviting her to join Project Respect as a spokesperson. Sarah eagerly accepted, becoming one of the most passionate advocates for the initiative. But success didn't come without challenges. As Project Respect gained more visibility, it attracted critics who questioned its motives and accused it of being performative. Barron faced relentless scrutiny from some corners of the media, with opinion pieces dissecting every move he made. Despite the noise, Barron remained focused. He knew that real change was never easy, and he refused to be discouraged by those who sought to undermine his efforts. During a live television interview, a reporter pressed him on the criticism. How do you respond to those who say Project Respect is just a publicity stunt? The reporter asked. Barron didn't flinch. I understand the skepticism, he said calmly. But for me, this is personal. I've experienced what it feels like to be judged unfairly. And I've seen firsthand how many others have gone through the same thing. Project Respect isn't about headlines, it's about building something lasting and meaningful. The reporter nodded, visibly impressed by Barron's measured response. The interview went viral, with countless viewers praising his composure and dedication. As the one-year anniversary of Project Respect approached, Barron and his team organized a massive celebration event. Thousands of supporters gathered in Central Park, where live music, speeches, and interactive workshops brought the community together. Standing on stage once again, Barron looked out at the sea of faces, young and old, from all walks of life. He felt a deep sense of pride and gratitude for how far the initiative had come. When we started Project Respect, I didn't know where it would take us, Barron said, his voice filled with emotion. But seeing all of you here today reminds me that kindness and respect will always win. We've accomplished so much together, and this is just the beginning. The crowd erupted into cheers and applause, the energy electric. As the event wound down, Barron stood at the edge of the stage, watching the sunset over the city. He knew there would be more challenges ahead, but he felt ready to face them, stronger and more determined than ever. Because when it came to building a better world, there was no turning back. The day after the Project Respect anniversary event, Barron woke up to the smell of fresh coffee brewing in the kitchen. He stretched, still buzzing with the energy from the celebration. His phone had been flooded with messages all night, supporters thanking him, participants sharing their stories, and media outlets requesting interviews. He scrolled through the notifications as he sipped his coffee, pausing when he saw a particularly heartfelt message. Barron, you've changed my life. I've always been afraid to speak up, but after seeing what you did, I found the courage to stand tall. Thank you for being an inspiration. I'm proud to be part of this movement. He smiled, his chest tightening with a mix of pride and humility. This was why he had started Project Respect. to give people the strength to demand the respect they deserved and to inspire a culture of kindness and fairness. The phone buzzed again. This time, it was his assistant, Kate, calling with an update. "Hey, Barron. I just got off a call with the Director of Education for the state of California. They're interested in integrating Project Respect's curriculum into public schools across the state." Barron blinked, surprised but thrilled. "That's incredible news. Did they say when they want to start?" "As soon as possible," Kate replied. "They're impressed with how the initiative has grown and think it's exactly what their students need." "That's amazing, Kate. Let's schedule a meeting with them and start planning." Barron ended the call and leaned back in his chair, reflecting on how far things had come. What had started as a personal experience at an airport had transformed into a national movement, one that was now on the verge of influencing the next generation. The meeting with the California Education Board was a success. Within weeks, schools across the state began implementing Project Respect's workshops, focusing on empathy, diversity, and standing up against injustice. Teachers reported immediate improvements in classroom culture, students were more inclusive, conflicts were resolved more peacefully, and a sense of unity began to take root. One teacher, Ms. Alvarez, sent Barron a letter detailing the transformation she had witnessed in her classroom. "Dear Barron, I've been teaching for 15 years, and I've never seen such a positive shift in my students as I have since we started using the Project Respect curriculum. Students who once struggled with confidence are now speaking up. Bullies are learning to apologize and take responsibility for their actions. It's truly inspiring. Thank you for giving us the tools to make this possible." Barron read the letter twice, moved by its sincerity. He shared it with his parents, who were equally proud. "This is just the beginning," Donald said, patting Barron on the shoulder. "You've built something that will outlast all of us." But as Project Respect continued to expand, Barron found himself facing new challenges. The increased visibility brought scrutiny from larger media outlets and public figures. Critics began questioning whether a movement led by someone from a prominent family could truly represent the everyday person. The headlines were relentless. Can Barron Trump really lead a grassroots movement? Project Respect's success, genuine or carefully orchestrated? Barron refused to let the criticism shake him. He knew what Project Respect stood for, and he wasn't about to let anyone diminish its impact. Still, he understood the importance of transparency and accountability. He called an emergency meeting with his team to address the growing concerns. "We need to be open about everything," he said. "Our funding, our goals, our successes, and our failures. I want people to see the real work we're doing, not just the polished version." His team agreed. They revamped the Project Respect website to include detailed reports on their activities, budgets, and long-term plans. They also launched a series of town hall-style events, where community members could voice their concerns, share feedback, and participate in shaping the initiative's future. The move was widely praised. Critics softened their tone, and the media began to focus on the tangible impact Project Respect was having on communities across the country. Despite the challenges, Barron remained focused on the heart of the initiative, connecting with people and listening to their stories. He continued visiting schools and community centers, often sitting down for one-on-one conversations with students and parents. At one school in Chicago, he met a young boy named Malik. Shy and soft-spoken, Malik had been bullied for years because of his speech impediment. Barron knelt down to Malik's level, giving him a reassuring smile. "You know, Malik," Barron said, "when I was your age, I didn't like speaking in front of people either. I was afraid they'd judge me or think I wasn't good enough. But I learned something really important. What you have to say matters. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Malik's eyes lit up. "You think I can be brave like you?" "I don't just think so, I know so," Barron replied. Malik hugged him tightly, and Barron felt a surge of emotion. These moments were what kept him going. The chance to make a difference in someone's life, even in the smallest way. As the 2-year anniversary of Project Respect approached, Barron and his team began planning an international expansion. Countries like Canada, the UK, and Australia had expressed interest in adopting the initiative's programs, and Barron was eager to take the message global. The announcement was made at a press conference in New York City. Barron stood at the podium, flanked by representatives from partner organizations around the world. "We've seen how Project Respect can change lives here in the United States," he said. "Now it's time to share that message with the world. Kindness, respect, and fairness aren't just American values, they're human values." The response was overwhelming. Within months, Project Respect workshops were being held in schools and community centers across multiple countries. The initiative became a symbol of hope and unity, inspiring people from different backgrounds to come together and build a more inclusive world. As Barron stood on the stage at Project Respect's international launch event, he looked out at the diverse crowd before him. Flags from dozens of countries waved in the wind, and the air buzzed with excitement. "This journey has been more than I ever could have imagined," Barron said, his voice filled with emotion. "But it's not about me. It's about all of us, coming together, standing tall, and creating a future where everyone is treated with the respect they deserve." The crowd erupted into cheers, their voices blending into a powerful chorus of unity and hope. Barron stepped back, taking it all in. He had no idea where this journey would lead next, but one thing was certain: Project Respect was just getting started. And with every step forward, the world became a little kinder, a little fairer, and a little brighter. Barron took a deep breath as the event drew to a close, his heart swelling with a mix of pride and gratitude. The journey of Project Respect had been a whirlwind, an unexpected turn that had grown far beyond what he could have envisioned. What had started as a personal encounter at an airport had now reached countries across the globe, influencing schools, businesses, and communities in ways that made him believe in the power of change more than ever. As the international expansion settled into full swing, Barron began traveling to meet key partners and organizations eager to implement the Project Respect framework in their regions. His first stop was London, where a coalition of educators and youth advocates welcomed him with open arms. They had seen the transformation his initiative had sparked in the US and were eager to bring that same change to their communities. At a local youth center in East London, Barron met a group of teenagers who had struggled with bullying and exclusion. One girl named Priya shared her story of feeling invisible in school, ignored by her peers because she didn't fit their idea of cool. "They used to whisper about me," Priya said quietly, her eyes downcast. "I never thought anyone would really care about how I felt." Barron knelt beside her, his voice calm and reassuring. "Priya, I've learned that the people who whisper about others are the ones who are afraid of anyone who's different from them. But being different is your strength, not your weakness. You have a voice, and the world needs to hear it." Tears welled up in Priya's eyes, and she nodded, a small smile breaking through her sadness. In that moment, Barron knew he had made a connection that would leave a lasting impact. He handed her a Project Respect pin, a small token that had become a symbol of belonging and resilience within the movement. "This pin is a reminder that you're part of something bigger now," Barron said. "You're not alone." From London, Barron traveled to Paris, then to Sydney, each stop a new chapter in the ever-growing story of Project Respect. The media followed his every move, documenting the initiative's global reach. Headlines began to shift from skepticism to celebration. Project Respect, from a small initiative to a global movement. Barron Trump inspires a new generation of leaders. One simple message: treat everyone with respect. Barron barely had time to process the success. His days were packed with meetings, speeches, and community visits, but it was the letters and messages from people whose lives had been changed that kept him going. One evening, while reviewing correspondence with his team, a letter caught his eye. It was from a father in Brazil whose son had been struggling with depression after being bullied at school. The father described how Project Respect's workshops had given his son the confidence to stand up for himself and believe in his worth again. "You saved my son's life," the letter read. "He found hope through your words. I can never thank you enough." Barron read the letter twice, his throat tightening with emotion. This was the real measure of success, not the headlines, not the accolades, but the lives touched, the hearts lifted. But with great success came great responsibility. As Project Respect continued to grow, so did the pressure on Barron to maintain its momentum. Every decision felt monumental, every partnership a potential turning point. The weight of it all began to take a toll on him. His team noticed the change first. His normally upbeat demeanor gave way to quiet moments of reflection, and the spark in his eyes dimmed just a little. Kate, his trusted assistant, pulled him aside one afternoon. "Barron, you've been running nonstop for months," she said gently. "You've done so much, but it's okay to take a break. The world won't fall apart if you step back for a little while." Barron hesitated. The idea of stepping away, even for a short time, felt almost impossible. But deep down, he knew she was right. He needed to recharge, to refocus. "I'll think about it," he promised. "But first, we have the conference in Berlin next week." Kate smiled, knowing that was the best answer she'd get for now. The conference in Berlin was a resounding success, with leaders from across Europe pledging their support for Project Respect. Barron stood on stage, delivering one of his most heartfelt speeches yet, urging policymakers to prioritize empathy and respect in their education systems. "When we teach children to value kindness and fairness, we lay the foundation for a better future," he said. "We have the power to change the world. One classroom, one community at a time." The crowd gave him a standing ovation, their applause echoing through the grand hall. But that night, as Barron sat alone in his hotel room, the exhaustion finally caught up with him. He stared out the window at the twinkling lights of Berlin, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on him. For the first time in a long time, he allowed himself to acknowledge just how tired he was. He picked up his phone and called his mom. Melania answered on the second ring, her familiar voice immediately soothing. "Hi, Mom," Barron said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I think I need a break." Melania listened patiently as he poured out his thoughts. When he finished, she spoke softly but firmly. "You've done more than anyone could have expected, Barron. It's okay to rest. The people you've inspired aren't going anywhere. They'll be here when you're ready to come back." Her words gave him the permission he hadn't realized he needed. Barron decided then and there to take a step back, at least for a little while. In the weeks that followed, Barron retreated from the public eye. He spent time with family, reconnected with old friends, and allowed himself to breathe again. Project Respect continued to thrive under the capable leadership of his team, and Barron stayed in close contact, offering guidance from behind the scenes. He discovered a newfound love for hiking, spending hours exploring trails and soaking in the quiet beauty of nature. It was during one of these hikes that an idea began to form: a book, a way to share his journey and the lessons he'd learned with a wider audience. Back at home, he began writing, pouring his heart onto the page. The book took shape quickly, each chapter a reflection on the pivotal moments that had defined his journey. He wrote about the airport incident that started it all, the people he had met along the way, and the profound impact that kindness and respect could have on the world. When the book, Respect, The Power of Empathy, was released, it became an instant bestseller. Readers around the world connected deeply with Barron's story, drawing strength and inspiration from his words. The success of the book reignited Barron's passion for the work he had started. Rested and recharged, he was ready to step back into the spotlight, not as a weary leader, but as someone with a renewed sense of purpose. At the 5-year anniversary of Project Respect, Barron stood once again on a grand stage, addressing a crowd that had grown far larger than he could have ever imagined. People from all walks of life had gathered to celebrate the milestone, their faces glowing with hope and pride. 5 years ago, we set out to build a world where everyone is treated with kindness and respect, Barron said, his voice steady and strong. We've made incredible progress, but the work isn't done. Together, we will keep moving forward, because respect is a right, not a privilege. And every person, everywhere, deserves it. The crowd erupted into applause, their cheers filling the air with a powerful sense of unity. As Barron looked out at the sea of faces, he knew without a doubt that this was only the beginning. Project Respect wasn't just a movement, it was a promise. A promise to keep fighting for a better, kinder world. And it was a promise he intended to keep.